Hey YouTube, John here, back with another video. And I know it's been a little while, um, but I was just down here in the basement. We're just working on a little project I have going on, and figured I'd take you guys along with me and kind of show you what I'm doing. So check it out. So what I want to share with you guys today is some techniques that I use to modify and mount an Experimental Airlines Armin wing onto a flight test FT Explorer. Now, what brought this project about is we were down at the airfield a couple of weeks back, and we had a little incident, a little too windy out, and actually partially folded the wing for the FT Explorer. And some research revealed that this is actually kind of a common problem, where the wings tend to fold about an inch to the left or right of the center seam. The center seam is actually stronger than the foam around it, and they'll split and break right there. So I've been watching Ed's videos for quite some time now, and really do enjoy his Armin wing, the simplicity of it and the strength of it, and thought that this would be a perfect opportunity to go ahead and try out building one of his wings and see if we could modify it to fit the FT Explorer. So basically what we're going to do in this video, we're not going to go too deep into the actual construction of the Armin wing. Ed does a great job at explaining that, and I will put a link to his channel down below so you can go ahead and check that out. What I am going to explain is the subtle differences to make it fit the FT Explorer and match up as close as we could to the flight test wing, because flight test did do a great job designing this plane and the flight characteristics are fantastic. So what I wanted to do was make sure that we had the proper chord and control surfaces to make the plane fly as close as it would if it still had the flight test wing on it. So just some quick specs in this wing before we get started. It's made out of two full sections of Dollar Tree foam board, giving it a total wingspan of 60 inches. This is roughly 3 inches wider than the stock flight test wing. And what this does is it slows the plane down a little bit and helps it glide a little more, which for me being a newbie pilot, it definitely helps out a lot. The slower the better. The wing has a nominal chord of 5.5 inches with an 1.5 inch control surface, which for the time being I've left full length, but it does give you the option to cut it down and add flaps if you'd like to. The one thing I didn't add to this wing is dihedral, which, again, being a new flyer, I was a little nervous. I've never flown a plane without dihedral, but to be honest with you, it's so minor in the original flight test wing, I didn't even notice the difference. So now that we've done an overview of the wing, let's go ahead and get some measurements that you're going to need to build one, and then we'll take it out to the field and check out how it flies. So like I said, this isn't going to be an Armin wing building tutorial. Ed has plenty of great videos covering that subject. This is going to be more of me sharing with you the measurements that I used to create an Armin wing with the correct chord to fit on an FT Explorer. So the first thing I'm going to do is measure out 3 strips of foam board that are going to be our formers for our spar. And the reason I cut those off first is just to give us less foam board to handle and just make things a little easier to work with. So what I use for formers on this wing is 2 1-inch formers and 1 former that's 2 3/8 inch long, right there. We'll go ahead and cut those off using a straight edge and a razor. Alright, once you get those formers cut out, you go ahead and put those aside. And the next thing we're going to cover is marking this out and covering it with tape. So we're going to go with a two-tone tape job. Yellow on the bottom, blue on the top. And the way we're going to do this is by first laying 3 sheets of yellow, starting from here up, overlapping them roughly 1/8 of an inch. And then we'll start from this end and move back with 4 sheets of tape. Again, overlaying them 1/8 of an inch. And what that will do is when we fold the wing, it'll wind up having the tape overlapping each other like the shingles on a roof. And that way the wind can't really get up under them and peel them off the wing. So we're going to start by measuring up 12 1/4 inches. And marking the foam 12 1/4. 12 1/4. And like I said, we'll start from this end and put down 3 sheets of yellow tape, overlapping them roughly 1/8 of an inch. Then once you have your bottom color down, you go ahead and start at your 12 1/4 inch mark and lay your top color down. Once you get your wing tape covered, hopefully a little better than I did, you're going to take it like this with your bottom color facing you, flip it over, and we're going to lay it out for beveling, depapering, and folding. So we're going to take a ruler and we're going to mark this at 1 inch. So 1 inch, 5 1/2 inches, and 11 3/4 inches. We'll do this on both sides. So again, 1 inch, 5 1/2 inch, and 11 3/4 inches. And you'll see here when we do this, there's a reason why we have this third mark. This is where I vary a little bit from Ed's technique, and instead of depapering from here back, I depaper this section right here and leave the paper on the trailing edge. And the reason for that is this top edge here is going to become your control surface, and I've found that removing the paper from even just one side of the control surface greatly reduces its torsional strength. So by leaving the paper on here, you get a much stiffer control surface and, in theory, much better control. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to score along this 1 inch line, peel the paper off, and bevel this edge. So we'll peel the paper off there, and then using our straight edge as a guide, right back to that 1 inch mark, we're going to go ahead, use a drywall sponge, and we are going to bevel that edge. Okay, so once we get that edge beveled, we'll go ahead and score the paper on our next line, which is at 5 1/2 inches. And then finally at our top line at 11 3/4 inches. And then go ahead and peel that paper off. And again, we're just peeling in between the two lines that we just scored. Just like so. Now, we're ready to fold. So, taking the edge that you just beveled and putting it under some sort of a hard surface, your straight edge will work. In this case, if you have a large cutting board, you can use that or a piece of plywood, and you'll just take the edge that you just beveled, slide it on under, line it right up with the paper, the section that you just depapered, on both sides, nice and straight. Hold it down one hand and fold it right over with the other hand. Just like that. You can even use your straight edge to push down on it and pull it out of your hard surface. Fold it back over itself. And again, we'll use our straight edge to further push down on our crease here. And the more you work this crease, the more you work this fold, the better. Because what that's going to do is that is going to narrow your leading edge of your wing and make the wing more aerodynamic. There we go. So it's done right. What you should have is the top side of your wing and the bottom side of your wing. So to install our formers, what we're going to do is we're going to take and measure 1 inch back from our leading edge where we depapered it. So line that 1 inch from where the paper starts. So right there, right there. And we're going to go ahead and take our first 1 inch former and we're going to glue that in place. And you don't have to go crazy with the glue because this isn't really structural, meaning it's not really holding it together. This is just going to be for support in preventing the wing from flexing and primarily keeping the wing's shape, the wing's airfoil shape, and giving us a channel for our spar to go in. So the next thing we're going to need is our second former and whatever we're going to be using as a spar. In my case, I'm going to be using a carbon arrow shaft because that's what I have in stock. You may want to use a wooden dowel or just a piece of carbon fiber rod. Either way, you want it to be roughly a 1/4 inch in diameter. And you'll see the reason for that as we go along. But what you're going to do is just put that in place, use that as a spacer, throw some glue on the next former, being careful not to go too thick because you don't want to glue this to your spar. More glue is not always better. So we'll line that up like that. Use our straight edge, just push that right down. There we go. Now there's our channel for our spar right in place. So the last thing we're going to need for our former is our 2 3/8 inch sheet of foam board. And we're going to go ahead and depaper this on both sides. And the reason we're going to do this is because, like we said before, the paper actually adds a lot of structural rigidity to the foam board. So just by peeling that one sheet off, you can see that it's that much more flexible. And by peeling the other side off, it's going to be extremely flexible. And that's going to allow us to stretch that over our carbon arrow shaft and give us a little bit of a bow to it. And that's going to help us form our airfoil when we bring the top of the wing over. So what we're going to do is just apply a small amount of hot glue on the leading edge. Again, we don't want to glue our carbon arrow shaft in here, so we're going to be very careful not to do that. We'll line this up with the leading edge, and then glue that down. During this process, you're going to want to make sure you leave enough of the arrow shaft sticking out to be able to pull it out when everything is set. So once we're happy with that, Make sure our shaft isn't glued in. It isn't. And you can even, you don't have to worry too much about it, because if you have a second arrow shaft, you can push it out. But it's always good practice just to leave a little bit sticking out. So the next thing we're going to do is apply glue under the trailing edge. Again, more isn't always better. And then do the same thing we did with the leading edge. And just push this down. And like I said, during this process, what we're actually doing is bowing the foam and forming it over that arrow shaft. And that's really going to help us get a real nice airfoil when we fold this wing. So there we have it. There's our formers in place, just like that. So the last thing we need to do is fold this wing over. So we'll start with putting some glue on the top here, on the top of our former. And we'll go ahead and fold this right over. And just work it to make sure you get that glued right down to that former nice. Give yourself a nice shape. You can go ahead and put your straight edge on there. And once you're happy with that, go ahead and flip this over and lay some foam right down this trailing edge seam. And you want to be sparing here, because what can happen if you're not is extra glue will push out the back here, and it's going to give you trouble when you go to cut your control surface. So again, more isn't always better. So we're just going to lay a nice small bead of hot glue right here in the trailing edge. Missed a little bit right here. All right. Go ahead, use your straight edge and push that right down. A little bit does squeegee out. It's not a deal breaker, but preferably nothing comes out the bottom. And that's that. And really the last thing we have to do is cut down our control surface, and we're ready to go. So we're running 1.5 inch control surfaces on this. So we'll measure from the bottom here, 1.5 inches. And as you can see, we still have paper on both sides of our control surface, so we're going to have added strength there on our control surface, and it won't flex as bad. I mean, at the end of the day, we're building planes out of foam, so we're going to have some kind of rigidity issues, but the less we have, the better. Cut that straight across. Again, this is 1 1/2 inch control surface. And there we go. There is your Armin wing. That is the proper chord. 5 1/2 inch chord with a 1 1/2 inch control surface. All you need to do is cut and bevel your control surface, install your servos, and make a matching wing. Once you get that all set, come on back and we'll cut this thing out to fit the FT Explorer. So at this point, you should have two 60-inch sections of Armin wing complete, spar installed, taped together, servos installed, ready to go. The only thing you need to do is make a cutout to fit the fuselage, a cutout to go around the motor pod, set your center of gravity, and we're ready to fly. So for the fuselage, I've cut a 4-inch gap out between the two ailerons. And then for the motor pod, I've gone with 1 7/8 inch. And that gives you a nice snug fit on the motor pod and helps give you a nice positive centering point for the wing. And that goes from the leading edge 5 1/4 inches back. So 5 1/4 inches back, 1 7/8 wide, and that will make it roughly 1/2 inch deep. So for center of gravity, since I'm a new flyer, I went pretty conservative and went 1 3/8 inch back from the leading edge. Now that tends to make it a little nose heavy, but that fits my flying style right now. I'm sure as I gain, some more experience, I may want to move that back. Definitely use your judgment there, but I do know that 1 3/8 inch back from the leading edge is a good conservative place to start. So now that we got that all squared away, let's throw this on the plane, bring it out to the field, and see how it flies. So all in all, I have to say that I'm very pleased with this wing. Like I said before, one of the things that drew me to it was definitely the strength, but more than that, it's the simplicity. I mean, especially for a new pilot like me, being able to recreate a wing quickly after crashing is definitely a bonus. And you can build one of these wings in 2 to 3 hours after you've built a couple of them. Flight characteristics, I really don't notice much of a difference between this and the stock flight test wing. With the added width, I definitely have a longer glide slope, and it slows things down a little bit, which is nice for me. And even with a 60-inch wingspan, it still has plenty of rudder authority, which kind of surprised me because I'm only running about 50% of what flight test suggests for throws on the rudder. So I hope this video was helpful to someone. I hope it inspires somebody out there to try something new. I definitely want to thank Flight Test and Experimental Airlines for inspiring me to try something new. I want to thank all my viewers and subscribers for just hanging in there and watching these videos. If you haven't subscribed already, please do, and definitely leave a comment down below. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time. Nice and slow.